it's gut wrenching, to bring all your team into the conference room and say, we have 2 months worth of capital left in the bank. We're not going to be able to secure any more. Here's your severance package. We really appreciate all the work that you've done, and we hope to be able to rehire you in the future when times are better. There's like nothing worse than doing that. And then you take the hit along with everybody else.
So the big news has been announced. Like, you want to do that again, Tim? Like, you bigger than ever.
That's right. We're going bigger than ever before.
Yes. So the big news announced yesterday that the Startup World Cup, which will host 10 of the next big businesses in Virginia on stage.
And I guess like beyond next big, I mean, like they're probably the biggest startups in Virginia, but like the next Series B, C companies, that's what we're looking for.
Yes.
But keep going. You're doing
They
great.
will be able to pitch on stage at, according to Tim, the biggest event, the biggest business event in history. What a line. I love that.
I'm looking like Virginia, but like, I asked a question on LinkedIn, what is the biggest venue that you pitch at? I doubt that. And, I mean, very few people, I think, will have had the opportunity to pitch at something like a Sadler Center.
The biggest event for me was 600. I was terrified. But this is bigger than that. The Sandler Center in Virginia Beach. It's going to be lovely. August 21st, 5 to 8.
Tickets are available.
Yep. You can go to innovate757.org/startup.
And when I say tickets, we're not talking like get your $182 ticket. We're $10
plus Ticketmaster fees.
Yeah, we're talking just a nominal fee. Get there. We just want to make sure you show up. These startups are putting in a lot of effort. We're scouring and searching and turning over every rock to make sure we get the 10 best startups in Virginia. And we want to make sure they have a crowd that's there and supporting them, and that the energy is there. So $10.
Yeah,
come and support your local startups.
There's the site, innovate757.org/startup World Cup VA, or just reach out to us, comment on the video. It'll be in the description, all that stuff. But it'll be a grand old time if you're one of the businesses that we just talked about, or you just want to see what's the next big thing.
We're trying to get as many investors there as possible as well. So from you're a founder, if you don't make the top 10, you still should be there. You
never know who can be in that room.
You never know.
Could be your next customer.
And you never know who someone you're sitting next to knows.
Exactly. So we look forward to seeing you all there. But today we have episode 259.
Crazy.
I believe, of this show. That started, I think, in August, actually, of 2020. I think for all these episodes, we've been saying March. But I think when it came around on the old book face, you did this on this day, I think it was like April 1 or 2. Don't quote me on that. But we're going to do this for a while.
We're in I guess that means we're in the start of year 6. Is that right?
Yeah. You've been associated with all 259 shows. I took a day off.
You missed one,
I've only been 258. Only one day off, but it's okay. Sometimes we take Thanksgiving off. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's recorded on Thanksgiving.
Well, no, that is the one day that we do take off, is because we know no one's going to watch at Thursday at 11 o'clock on Thanksgiving.
Cooking turkey, bro.
They're, getting ready for the Lions game to see Nickelback play the halftime show or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. Or Shabuzi, who's coming to Virginia Beach. All right, Berry Brunk, what's going on? Love the shirt.
Thank you, brothers. Thank you, my brothers. I like the title today. We got a lot of alliteration going on there, maybe some Star Trek references. I don't know what we're doing. We're building boldly in Hampton Roads, where no man has gone before. And Anyway.
That is definitely the first Star Trek reference in all of 259 episodes. So congratulations on checking that box off. We've been waiting.
Absolutely.
What's your
So Tim and I don't know you, I don't believe.
We don't
so these
know,
are always
and-
fun stories.
Exactly, especially when we know a lot of like players that have been around the hood, so to speak, for many, many years, and that how our paths have not crossed. What's your like? Let's start from the beginning in terms of not like beginning, but like how did you first get involved in the ecosystem back in the day?
Well, I'll take you down a short walk down memory lane for all the first timers here. So I grew up in Tidewater, in Churchland specifically, graduated from Churchland High, went to Virginia Tech, studied aerospace. Yeah, sorry.
My son is a Hokie. He's finishing his freshman year. So
hey, listen. My brother went to UVA. It's a house divided, guys. What can I say?
You went from a trucker to
Went
a
from a trucker.
to
a Hokie. Yeah, it was a step up, honestly. went from one set of farmlands to another set of farmlands, pretty much. But it was all a good experience. I ended up deciding not to work in engineering because of a lot of reasons. So I ended up going into the media business and had a career in publishing and cable for about 15 years, which prior to my shift, I moved back to Virginia Beach in the late 80s and published the Virginia Travel Guide under contract with the Commonwealth of Virginia's Economic Development Corporation and the Division of Tourism. The company that owned that contract was based in New York, and in 90, after securing a really awesome house on 25th and Mediterranean, I get transferred up to New York to handle the Big Apple Guide and a magazine called New York Hotel Magazine. So I was there in the city for till 2000, till when? 96. Had a lot of interesting time in the city because if you remember the era back then, we're talking the early 90s, it's pre-internet, but media was moving from traditional to what they called new media and digital content on CD-ROMs, and then ultimately the internet. So I founded a management consulting and product development firm in New York City in 92 called the Pinnacle Group. And we were very fortunate to get contracts with all the regional bells, little emerging companies like America Online and Netscape and Microsoft. We had about 60 people doing about 18 million a year. And we're doing a lot of innovation for the bell companies as a kind of a skunk works. Over the years, obviously the internet took off. So I ended up moving to Seattle in 96, still running the Pinnacle Group. Hooked up with some guys at the MIT Enterprise Forum that were hanging out with people like Jeff Bezos and Terry Drayton that founded Home Grocer, Naveen Jain that founded InfoSpace, this other guy named Bill Gates and Nathan Myhrvold and Paul Allen. They were all, riding their bicycles to work. And it was not a heady time because that hadn't happened yet, but I was there during the period that all evolved. So kind of fast forward about 20 years. I don't know how much detail you guys want me to go into on various companies. I kind of tick off a few. Me and some guys, we raised $43 million in July of 97, built a software company to build the first electronic medical record for the long-term care industry. Hired about 500 people from all over the world, moved them to a little town north of Seattle. We sold that company in 2003 to a large pharmacy company called Omnicare. I got interested in getting seniors connected to the internet during that experience and founded a company in 99 that was called Senior Center, seniorcenter.com. It's still out there. And we connected seniors to the internet using interactive television. So kind of think about what you experience in a hotel when you go in and you can go from on-demand content to the internet to TV. That's what we were doing in multi-dwelling unit congregate housing. So over the course of time, I was able to we were able to really build that product out into what are called a virtual visit, telehome care, telemedicine type of product, which ultimately got sold to McKesson, where we migrated our IP and our tech stack into a product that McKesson marketed called Patient Vision, which if you're in the hospital and you have a TV in your room, which pretty much everybody does, the TV allowed the patient to interact with staff, do a lot of workflows that the staff may have done. And we evolved this interactive TV interface over a series of several more companies that figured out how to do it better, cheaper, faster, and implemented those systems in hundreds and hundreds of hospitals around the country. I moved back to Tidewater in 2016 and immediately began to think about the ecosystem that I had left in Seattle that nurtured entrepreneurs with a very robust group of advisors, former tech employees who had made some money, and thought that Tidewater, Hampton Roads, the 757, Cova, whatever we want to call it today, is ripe for being transformed for a number of reasons. Now, that's where Innovate comes in, right?
Yeah. How is this with that journey? Did you just follow the path of least resistance? As you continue to evolve down?
Yeah, it was weird. I hadn't raised the company in New York. We didn't have to raise any money for. We had some opportunities to raise money, but it was, I hired one person, then we did a bunch of sales, and we hired 7 or 8 more, and we did a bunch more, and ultimately we had a national network, and we're generating throwing off a lot of cash at about a 40% margin. The experience in Seattle was different. The first company with 43 million, it was actually structured as a strategic investment so that we never had to do a Series A, Series B, no convertible debt, no safes, nothing. Yeah. The 43 million was allocated. What we had to do was meet certain milestones on hiring and code development every 6 months, and if we met them, we got another $7 million. So it was kind of an unusual financing, but it was strategic from a strategic investor. The other companies that I've been involved in were grounded, just had to grind it out. I seed funded the first company, and we raised 2 convertible debt rounds of about 5 million combined in late '99. We closed a Series A round of 5.4 in March of 2000. So just think about that date for a minute. 2 weeks later, the NASDAQ bubble burst and shit hit the fan. So we had a $12 million round planned for 2001 that never happened. At that point, I had 25 employees. Our burn rate was a couple $100,000. We're building products so that people could access the internet on their TVs. SeniorCenter.com was the product. We weren't part of a .com bubble business model because we actually made money on the implementation, installation, and training of the people that were using the system. We weren't an ad-supported model. We made money on the implementation. And then there was a recurring model as well. But to answer your question, so that period of time was very catastrophic for all startups and all funds. So we were raising money up and down the West Coast and also from New York during the latter part of 2000, which was a complete shit show. Nobody wanted to do anything except run for cover, triage their existing portfolio, and not put any money into any new companies. So our B round, which we had slated for around October of 2001, never happened. Obviously, wow. not just because of the .com burst, but also there was a little event called 9/11 in New York, which again created a macroeconomic headwind for all of us.
Wow.
Yeah, so then you have to do the hard things you have to do to survive. You lay off 90% of your staff. You, as the founder, stop taking payroll. You pay your people, and you kind of muster through. So we were fortunate that we had some really good gigs during the 01, 02, 03 period of time that were funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to create opportunities for other digital divide cohorts, seniors being part of the digital divide. We had basically built a system that allowed people to get online without a computer. And we did some projects for the Gates Foundation, which were featured in an article in the New York Times in 03. And then the board told me at the end of 03 to go try and raise some money based on the little bit of lift that we had. We're bumping along the end of the runway, kind of hanging on by our fingernails. And I went out to two sets of potential buyers, struck out in one vertical, found a potential buyer in the other, and we sold the company. It wasn't any great exit event for anybody, but we got out and continued to develop the product under the mothership of McKesson, which had a lot more resources than we would have ever been able to secure.
What's your day in the life look like these days in terms of what are you doing? Are you still involved in the startup scene? Are you giving back in ways, mentoring? I'm sure that you've picked up a lot of valuable lessons like today or after the ZERP era, 18 months ago. It seemed like the number one thing that every founder was being told was cut, burn, cut, burn, cut, burn. And so you've experienced that firsthand.
Yeah, it's gut wrenching, to bring all your team into the conference room and say, we have 2 months worth of capital left in the bank. We're not going to be able to secure any more. Here's your severance package. We really appreciate all the work that you've done, and we hope to be able to rehire you in the future when times are better. There's like nothing worse than doing that. And then you take the hit along with everybody else. But as a founder, you can't leave. You have to stay, because even if you take it down to just one person, you've got to maintain the organization's forward motion regardless. Now, at some point, and let's say you mortgaged your house, you're 3 payments behind on your payments, and your car got repossessed, it might be time to think about opportunity cost and go find something lucrative to do that isn't where you don't have 100% equity. So it can be a wake up call too. At some point, you may have to just say, I gave it the old college try, and it's time to move on. I've seen a lot of founders do that, who busted their ass for 7 or 10 years, raised $10 million with 300 angels. We're working with a company right now that is having the consolidation done for their cap table to get 300 investors that put in about $12 million into one entity. So you do what you have to do, Tim.
Yeah, that's rough.
Signatures.
Oh, that's what I was thinking too. When you mentioned 300 people, I'm like, man, that cap table's got to be a nightmare. Well,
yeah. Just think of the legal fees to do the consent resolutions that are happening right now with Stoll Reeve. Actually, it's Perkins Coie in the West Coast. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That founder should have had somebody beat some sense into him like early on in the process. But yeah, you come across a lot of really wrecked deals that you are trying to maybe resuscitate. I'll go back a little bit because I wanted to focus on the angel group that's predominant on the West Coast, or actually nationally. When we were raising money for Senior Center, one of my board members, one of my angels, was the chair of Life Sciences Committee for the Keiretsu Forum in the Bay Area. So this is 1999. Keiretsu was pretty new. We pitched. We didn't get any money. We ended up getting money elsewhere. But in 2005, Keiretsu Forum decided to branch out from the Bay Area, and they wanted to open a Northwest office. So Two friends of mine were the people that opened Keiretsu Seattle. I was one of the first 150 members, and their model is it's 150 accredited investors max per chapter. Now, as they have grown around the country, they can syndicate deals across the other chapters, because once you're vetted by one chapter, you can do others. So I was one of the 25 people that was on deal screening for about 9 years. We would typically get about 100 deals a month, and we'd look at them, we'd carve it down to maybe 10 or 15. We'd have the CEOs come in and pitch, and then we curate it down to 3 that would present at the monthly lunch meeting that we'd have at the Bellevue Club or the Rainier Club, or someplace nice. And people would write checks. I mean, Keiretsu Forum's performance vastly outstrips 757 Angels or any of the angel groups that are in Virginia. Keiretsu does have a Mid-Atlantic group now, as well as the Rockies. Our Seattle group now is Seattle, Bellevue, Portland, Boise, Vancouver. So if you get selected to present, you could basically do 5 different days of presenting to 750 angels over a 5-day period. And it is what it is. I mean, not everyone in the audience, unfortunately, is going to write a check, but you'll get awareness, you'll get buzz, you'll get word of mouth and things that are going on. The real value of Keiretsu Forum for the investor is that there's a very rigorous due diligence process that they've created over the years, much like 757 here. And that gives the investor some confidence that the deal has been pretty well vetted by people that actually might understand that space or be a subject matter expert in that space. So our ecosystem here could learn some things from other parts of the country that are more known for their investment capital formation groups, right? And that's what we need to do here, is build that up.
I just the whole I think that we're really, really slow on the whole idea of sharing deal flow. I mean, it's just everyone is so protective here, whereas like sharing deal flow. I mean, that is a really, really key element. Sharing upside, and I guess on the other side, sharing some of the downside protection as well. But that is one area that I think that could really, really be improved.
Each high-tech company, or each company that raises money, pollinates the community with people who have been successful. So here, you've got some traditional old money kinds of investors. You go to the Princess Anne Country Club and hang out and see with your business plan, see what you can secure. But the energy that we're trying to create here with what you guys are doing and what we need to do a better job of is success breeds success, right? So if we're going to build boldly in Hampton Roads, we need to have some successes here. Like maybe the guys that drone up are going to hit a couple home runs, and 2 or 3 other founders will start some other companies. That's just an example.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm curious about, I tell everyone, part of when I'm talking about what Innovate Hampton Roads is that my big, hairy, audacious goal, if you will, I want us to be able to create a unicorn on each of the 7 cities. And people think that it's crazy, and it might be a little crazy, but when you look at Drone Up in Virginia Beach, and we have SVT Robotics in Norfolk, and you have Psionic in Hampton, and you have IV Watch in Newport News, there's 4 of the 7 cities that are at least on the right trajectory. Will they hit unicorn status? I don't know. But the thing is like, it just takes one. It just takes one company to hit that one IPO, and then it's going to change the landscape. I'm curious what your take was as you saw Seattle transform. I mean, you've got Amazon and Seattle there. I mean, that totally transformed Seattle from when you first moved there to what it is today.
Well, and that's going to happen here in Virginia. And I've been forecasting this and telling anybody that would listen for the last 5 years that Amazon's using Crystal City for HQ2. People are going to put in their 7 years, but during the 7 years that they're there, and let's say you're a 2-income Amazon family and you're making $400K. When you go on PTO, you're probably going to end up at the beach at some point, the Virginia Beach. Maybe you'll go to Ocean City. Maybe you'll go, somewhere else. But what's going to happen if you leave Amazon is maybe they're going to end up here. Maybe they're going to end up in Fredericksburg or Richmond, but they will definitely be moving outward from Northern Virginia and finding a nice place where they can raise their family and start a 10-person company and raise $5 million and grow it into a $100 million company. That's a given. I mean, that happened 1,000 times in Seattle. That's why you have the much larger ecosystem there, which again is not paled in comparison, but smaller than the Bay Area or even Boston to some degree, or even New York, with Silicon Alley, which is where I started out. So we're the crown jewel of the Mid-Atlantic area. There's a lot of great stuff happening here, but what we've all seen over the years, well, first of all, the 7 cities have been non-cooperative since 1607, right? I mean, since the original settlers came into town, Chesapeake's pissed off at Portsmouth. Portsmouth, is a second, stepchild to Norfolk. Norfolk wishes that they had a beach. Norfolk's got the airport. The lack of, and this is not something that you and I or the people on this podcast are going to be able to do much about. There's a lot of let's say there's a lot of sticks in the mud in leadership positions that need to be retired out so new people can come in and actually make a regional cooperative happen. It's not, I mean, we've been fighting for that with the magazine that we've been publishing, which we don't have to talk too much about now, but the old guard here are not doing us any favors. I mean, how much money did we blow on the new rebranding a few years back where the consultant came up with, we're going to call this region the 757, and then Verizon goes and drops another area code on us, right? That was really a good use of funds to come up with, we're the 757. Well, the Postal Service said we were Hampton Roads in the 80s. That's been bad enough to try and market that or brand that area.
Yeah, we've talked about that many times on the show.
Some really tough shit we got to get through here.
Yeah, well, and I think that's like part of the thing that makes Innovate Hampton Roads is that, like, we're not really, we are a founders first focused organization, and we don't care where you come from. We are the storytellers. We're here to amplify your voice. We have like 2 things that we're working at the same time. Is one, we're educating outside capital about the companies that we have here. And then at the same time, it's like, hey, if you're an accredited investor, and you have some of this old money that you want to put to work and possibly get a 50, 100,000 X return on your dollar, like, we want you to be able to participate in that as well. We're going to teach you, about the opportunities. Don't get mad at us if those opportunities pass you by. But
right. Well, so 2 weeks ago, I spoke at the TomTom Festival in Charlottesville on a merger and acquisition topic. TomTom's great. It's the 13th annual thing. I mean, Charlottesville is happening, and there were plenty of VCs, and there was a pitch contest with 7 companies that were all really interesting. I mean, I'm glad that the international spotlight of the second Startup Academy thing is happening here. But I had my concern as a founder is you've only got so many hours in the day. So if you're not focusing on the things that are going to generate return on investment of your time, you need to qualify those very carefully. As much buzz as everything that we're going to raise with bringing that group here again, I knew founders that took their last $25,000 and went to Vegas to gamble so they could pay payroll.
Wow.
True story. And actually won and were able to.
I was going to say, hopefully they won.
They did. Yeah, I mean that was excessive, but I guess it was what he felt he needed to do at the time.
Wait. Are you just telling the story about Rain Man?
No, maybe he had Rain Man with him. Yeah, that's maybe that. No, this was actually I'm not going to name names, but a Seattle founder that actually did that. It's probably Googleable. My thoughts are, you're right. We need one unicorn, which would be great. But think about this for a minute, guys. AOL was DC based, right? Northern Virginia, DC based. I mean, Steve Case still has Revolution, up, in Georgetown. You can go up there and pitch them. But, he also has the smaller fund, the Rise of the Rest, to specifically put money into areas that are not your typical hotbed of venture capital or angel financing. So I would love to know how many of our budding entrepreneurs here have even gone up to DC to talk to ROTR or Revolution. I mean, they're healthcare focused, of course, but Rise of the Rest isn't. So that's right in our backyard. AOL pollinated that area with proliferation of many people who made big money when they merged.
Zach lived that firsthand.
Yeah.
I met Steve Case in my few moments with him. I said, thank you for creating this traffic nightmare that is Northern Virginia, and I blamed him for all of it. I grew up in Sterling, which is basically right next to where AOL was. And so it's interesting. You saying, I wonder how many founders are going up and looking, maybe not in their backyard, but in other places to get funding and stuff like that. Like, how do you think these founders know to look for something like that? Is that an educational thing? Like, why do they need to look for that? Like, just generally, like, I don't know. I feel like people think, okay, you can get all these things in your backyard. Maybe that's not the case. But then how far outside of your backyard do you look? Just what are your general thoughts on kind of founders looking in places that maybe they weren't thinking about?
I guess it depends on the company and the product that they're thinking of building. I mean, if you're looking at something media related, go to New York, it would be a great place. If you're looking at something kind of life sciences, biotech, Boston would be my first stop. Let's not go to Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto just yet, or talk to the VCs in Seattle. So how do you find out? That's a really great question, because we didn't have the resources back in 99, 2000 like there are today. And I guess without knocking the organizations that are here, go get connected with them and leverage them to the extent of their ability to help you, and then move up the food chain if that's what you're doing. You can get really bogged down in spending a lot of time pitching angel groups for zero results. Mm-hmm. I was an investor and a board member of a fitness company back in Portland, Oregon. And honestly, the CEO was one of the most prolific presentation CEOs I've ever met. He probably did 2,000 presentations all around the country. They raised money. They were very successful. They ended up not having a very good exit, but and the company was Journey Gym. It was a briefcase, like Porsche design gym you could take with you everywhere. He was selling out on Amazon, selling out on QVC. Hotels were putting it in the rooms. He was a serial entrepreneur. Actually, this is a great sidebar. He founded a company in Portland for CEOs of startups, and it's called Starve Ups. I'd put that up in chat. Go check out Starve Ups. It's a CEO-only group, and they have amazing metrics for raising and exiting and mentoring. We could probably follow that model here. It wouldn't be a bad idea. My thoughts on the resources that are available now are they're just so much more available than when we were raising our first couple rounds. When I started in Seattle, there was a really old group called Puget Sound Venture Club that was made up of a lot of timber magnates from like Weyerhaeuser, so old money. There was Alliance of Angels. There was no Keiretsu back then. There was Tech Alliance. There were a lot of VCs there, Madrona, Voyager, companies that emerged in the 2000s because they had made money. Early real network guys that made money, early F5 guys that made money, early Tableau people. So they were all starting up 2 and 3 man funds, and you had to get into the clique or become an insider so you could get introduced to these people, and that's how you did it. Now I think it's a little bit more mechanized and easier for a founder to network into potential investors. But the comment I made earlier about going to the Princess Anne Country Club and playing tennis and hanging out with people, there's still a lot of that being done.
Pickleball.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning.
Pickleball. Is that right? Yeah.
I would assume it's pickleball these days.
Morning, right? And they were saying, the recommendation, it was clearly, I mean, this, Barry, but like every investor has their thesis, they have their vertical, they have their stage. They have everything that they're looking for before they invest. But the recommendation was like, you need to have a list of 200 people or organizations before you even, when you're prospecting investors. And then it's a numbers game. Just like when it comes to investors finding that outlier, that's a numbers game from that standpoint. But as a founder, it's a numbers game when it's looking for investment. And you really got to do your homework and your research to find out, to compile a list and then narrow that down. And you got to take the stairs. You got to do the homework to figure out who these people are. And it's not rushing out, finding a name, schedule a meeting, and then rush out, find another name, schedule a meeting. I mean, you have to have a pretty tactful way of doing this. You have to be strategic.
Yeah, I completely agree. I guess also back then, angels, they weren't organized, so it was more of a one-off. And maybe you'd run into a bunch of guys and gals that were friends, and maybe they could create some kind of tag-along opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine, like back in the 90s, late 90s, how difficult it would be to come up with a list of 200 people. I mean, like that would now, like one thing that amazes me is that how, especially on X, formerly Twitter, that's where all these VCs and angels hang out. They're all looking for deal flow. And Hampton Roads, we seem to be really, really focused on LinkedIn. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right platform. That's all that. I see a lot of deal flow being shared on X. And
what are they doing?
They're talking about deals. They're talking about the deals that they're interested in, deals that they participated in, talking about companies that they're working with. But like that's all stuff that you can do research on. I create a group, and like the different investors that I see, I just throw them into a group and then start my little list dossier, if you will, of the different people that are out there, because investors now, I mean, they're looking to go earlier and earlier and earlier because, that's one aspect that AI is changing the game, is that you don't need as much capital. You don't need as many people, and you're able to get out there a lot quicker and faster. So investors now know they have to get in earlier because a company may only have to raise one time.
Knowing those numbers, and either of you can answer this, but like historically in economic developments, when they whale hunt and recruit bigger businesses into an area, there is an association. I don't know what the exact words are, but they're providing money, incentives, whatever, based on per seat, per job type of thing. Knowing that, maybe, before it would have been recruiting 1,000 people, companies, 1,000 employees to an area. Now maybe it's only going to get to 4 people,
Right.
Where are economic developments going to still incentivize, but they're gonna have to figure out a different way to do it? Is there just not going to be that anymore because we're so remote and companies can be wherever they want now? Is there any communication around that? Is there any thought around that these days that like, hey, like these companies aren't going to be they're going to be super big in revenue, but they're not going to be super big in talent, in headcount. Yeah.
Well, both UVA and Virginia Tech have funds, or they're LPs in funds, and one's in Roanoke, in LPs, the Carillion Health System out there, and their economic development group out there offers some pretty significant incentives, and so does the Commonwealth at large, for per individual hiring, per person per year, spiff of some sort for bringing in a high-tech organization. We were looking at bringing in a medical device company from Boston to Virginia Beach when Taylor was economic development director. It was through some people that I knew from the advisory board company. I wasn't specifically any sort of leader in this effort, but I think it was 300 jobs. We had a signed LOI from the city for $5 million. 1 million cash, 4 million, I think, in kind or real estate to be situated over there off of Princess Anne next to the other stuff that they were talking about at one point in time about having George Mason do the cyber security startup here. So, yeah, those are low probability conversations. I think, I used to hate it when the guys that were invested in our company were saying, well, why don't you just go sell some more, stuff and create some more, ARR. And it's the problem with that model. If you have those kinds of investors, I'm off on a tangent here a little bit, but you have this stair step thing. So you raise some money and you walk up the first flight and you hire some people and you generate some revenue and then you take the next step up. Well, what's happened actually pre the election, so late 23, 24, there were a lot of 10-year-old companies that were hovering around 2 million ARR that had raised 10 to 12 over the course of their lifespan and were actually out at organizations like Keiretsu or other regional angel groups or boutique VCs that were focused on their sector and they had open rounds and they were literally unable to raise any money. Their existing investors were unresponsive, I guess would be the right way to say it. And they were stuck. I was running into, because I was sitting in on deal screenings, 3 days a week, listening to 7 or 8 pitches. And I mean, these are really solid companies with, revenue, and you would think they would be great targets, but the market the last 18 months has been very brutal for anybody trying to raise money, even if you have revenue. I'm not sure what any pre-revenue experience has been like because I really don't see those that much. Maybe you guys have some input on that.
Yeah, put AI in your deck somewhere, and then you'll get some attention. Not necessarily saying it's going to close any deals, but it seems like all the focus is on AI.
Yeah, and these companies that were stuck, they're 10 years in, and if they've got venture, or even if angels are in, most of the angels now are very sophisticated. What the angels are now are really like VCs. Angels expect, there's a representative for the board. They're expecting, quarterly reports, monthly reports. You need to have good communication with your investors. But the problem is that really there's been very little money flowing into early stage investments or companies that are under 5 million in revenue. I mean, on the M&A side, that picked up a bit after the election. It was
I was going to ask you that. Is it a lack of dry powder, or is it a lack of successful exits on the M&A front that's freeing up capital to continue the investment cycle?
the companies that need money to expand are finding that it's better to go ahead and be acquired now at some kind of reasonable valuation. The acquiring companies are not circling like vultures. They're actually giving, decent valuations. But what's good? Say you're on the stair step model, right? You've got up 2 or 3 steps. Well, it's not giving up to sell your company to a big company that has 800 salespeople and a $500 million marketing budget that can just blow you up from 2 or 3 million to 30 or 300 million. That's a win. That's a big win. And usually the acquiring companies, they want to provide like an aqua hire path. In other words, they want the key team members, and probably all the team members that want to go, key developers, leadership people, chief growth officer, top salesperson, they move over to the bigger company. They get a paycheck every 2 weeks. They get benefits. They got some stock in the bigger company. They stick around for 3 years, and then the resources of the bigger company take them out. And then maybe they get a second bite at the apple down the road. So that's not failure. If you've been an entrepreneur and you've been kind of beavering away for 10 years, and you can't get over the 2 or 3 million hump in revenue, then it's really time to think about other options other than, if I only could raise $10 million, I could get to that other level. Well, just do it as part of a bigger company, and then everybody's happy.
If you're, I'm curious, you're just named, breaking news, you're just named czar of Hampton Roads. What, from an early stage standpoint, what are you doubling down on? What do you think that what the focus area should be from a startup standpoint?
Yeah, springtime is big time conference season for healthcare. I mean, I've been in health tech, pretty much the last 25 years, so that's my domain. Although on the M&A side, we do have some fintech and ag tech and some others. We're not industry. We're industry agnostic. So, but my background is health tech. So if I hear one more thing about an existing company now has an AI version of their application, I'm just going to hang up on them. I'm just started here. I started. Oh, yes, of course you do. We know you do. That's table stakes now. So if you don't, I'm going to hang up on you too. But I'm getting a little annoyed at the people that are popping up and saying, "Hey, we just relaunched our product and it's got AI." Wow. Okay. So I said at the beginning I might be a little curmudgeonly today, but I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic. So I'm going to try and give good results here for the audience. So what would I double down on? Well,
I mean, you've been around the block. You've seen some things, and I just would think that you're like, gosh, these folks in Hampton Roads, they just don't see it. It's right there in front of them. Why aren't they focused on this? And I'm just curious if something stood out to you. And it's because
I appreciate that on ramp there. It's really, for all of us, we need to team up and be a lot louder and a lot more aggressive about the value that this area represents to a startup ecosystem. The cost of living is relatively inexpensive. We've got great government and military resources and people that are leaving government or military positions that are coming into the market that are highly trained.
I personally think that, like, doubling down on defense tech, I mean, we should be like the defense tech area. We are so close to so many war fighters across every branch of service, to include NATO, that that is something that we are just in such a great position for that. And
for so many years, people were like, we need to diversify. And I was like, for a little bit, I was like, I jumped on that bandwagon because I didn't really understand it. And then I was like, whoa. Why would you diversify instead of double down? It's like, if this is what you're good at, we should be going after this. And I understand why people were trying to say we need to diversify because it's government spending and yada, yada, yada. But if this is what your bread and butter is, don't be afraid of it.
No, I'm gonna second that motion there, because we're not a community known for gaming. We're not a community known for mobile. We're not a community known for biotech, although some of that's coming in through the universities. The other parts of the country sort of have, we're not a hardcore software area, like Seattle or the Bay Area. But what we do have is innovation around. Well, first of all, we have the pathways into finance through the government, which I'm not sure many entrepreneurs think about that, unless maybe you come from a military family, or your parents were in, or maybe you served for a bit. I've got a son up in working for a defense contractor, and top secret stuff going on up in DC that, he's looking at things from a perspective of the education that he got, but then also coming up with all kinds of entrepreneurial ideas about satellite imaging and the other stuff that he's doing that he can't talk about. So I think you're right. Now, the other piece would be, Amazon has 40,000 open positions in Crystal City. So if I was in college or high school and about to go to college, I would be thinking about, that's a possible career path. Obviously, we've got major problems around the healthcare worker shortage. So anything that you can do to optimize workflow in a healthcare setting through better technology, that's going to grow. Not only from the aging out perspective, but just way more patients, and you got caregivers, and it's imbalanced. So technology is playing a role there in making things a lot more feasible. A lot of the stuff that we've been doing for 20 years around telemedicine, telehealth is now reimbursable. Back then it wasn't, so people had to pay for, provider had to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I would probably double down in that space because I know it.
I mean, one of the things that keeps me up at night a little bit is like, hey, we got to keep on building these aircraft carriers here. However, like these $1,000 drones that are in creating swarms, like we've got to diversify. We have to modernize how we're fighting wars today. I mean, not all wars are going to be like air carrier group wars or F-22, F-35 wars. We need to diversify from that standpoint as well and become more innovative and fight the wars of today and tomorrow as well.
Look at what we have in our backyard. We've got Langley, we've got Jefferson Labs. You can't tell me there isn't stuff going on over there that entrepreneurs shouldn't be participating in with those kinds of ideas. I'm just looking at the time here, so I want to make sure we cover what we need to cover. But there would be. So let's think about this. How about if we set up a monthly dinner event and invited 300 people, like they do at the MIT Enterprise Forum in cities that have MIT Enterprise Forums, and we have an event where you buy your own dinner and you have a speaker like whoever, somebody famous or not emerging famous. Because when I joined MIT in '96 in Seattle, Bezos came and talked. I'm like, who is this guy? And then Terry Drayton, who raised $1 billion for Home Grocer and then sold it to Webvan, he comes in. So we're kind of at the spot here that I think Seattle was in the mid '90s, where there are people who are not famous. The CEO of Drone Up, use them as an example. They come and talk. 300 people for dinner. You invite all the lawyers, all the accountants, all the service providers, the marketing people, the entrepreneurs, the investors, and we set up through Innovate, a monthly dinner session, probably from like September to April, and not do it during the summer. Be easy to do. Hotel would probably be thrilled to have us come in with a bunch of movers and shakers. That would be an easy thing to do. So I'm down for that if you want.
Yeah.
You want to you want to help get
We'll
that.
talk. Let's talk.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say, so we touched on this a bit ago. You know, I'm an old media guy, so when I moved back, I realized there was a void. We won't go into the Batten family and creating the Weather Channel and making $1 billion and selling the paper to the Tribune, and then the Tribune sells it to a hedge fund. We won't go through that whole story, but there were some magazines here, and I wasn't really happy with either one of them. I mean, I love Distinction, and I love Coastal Virginia because Randy's a friend. So as a hobby, one of my other companies, we started a magazine here, a quarterly regional lifestyle magazine that we send digitally to 95,000 people locally, which its entire focus is on economic development and the cool shit that we have here. So we've lost money every single issue. The new issues due out today. Our cycle is February, March, April is the first issue of the year, and then every quarter thereafter each year. This is also our 6th year, just like you guys. And we focus on all the cool things that are happening here.
What's the URL?
Cova, COVABLVD.com.
We'll make sure that we throw that in the show notes as well.
That would be awesome. It's free to subscribe. We make money on advertising, although I started in January of 2020 to bring a new regional magazine out. There's no events to cover, and nobody had any money. So after joining the Restaurant Association, the Hotel Association, the Chamber, all of that, the 757 Alliance, the Go Virginia Initiative in Richmond, the Retail Alliance, everybody. When we were going to publish right after Something in the Water in May of 2020, killed that idea. We were going to bail until 2021. During the summer, I was getting depressed, and I said, let's bring the magazine out anyway. We need to inject some goodwill or optimism into the community. So we ran a bunch of ads on TV for August and September. Boulevard is coming. And people didn't know what the heck Boulevard was. And then we ran a more detailed ad in September. So we launched in October of 2020. And I told everybody in all the organizations, send us your ad. Tell the community how much you love them and how much you appreciate their business, and that we will rise again, that kind of theme. So for 3 years, we gave away all the advertising, which is about $300K per issue in lost revenue. We recently, so all of our hashtags are Cova Boulevard, IG, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and our drip campaign, runs basically on IG. But yeah, it's become a labor of love, and we're still, I've got a great team of people that do it. I spend maybe an hour a week on it. And we just launched the May issue today.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep. It's got a killer cover. The cover shot is amazing. It's the new ballet, The Great Gatsby, that opens on the 3rd at Chrysler.
I was looking through some of the covers, and there is definitely some cool covers on there.
Thank you. Yeah. So when we positioned the magazine, we wanted it to be between Distinction, which was very high end, and Coastal Virginia, which is 35 years old. And if you want to know where the best cheeseburger is, that's where you go. But I wanted to have 2,000. I know I told Randy that. I wanted to have 2,000 word articles or more with like real journalism and stories that appeal to the innovators in the community. So the whole focus of our distribution is innovation. We moved entirely digital after 2022 because I was printing hard copies for enormous amounts of money, and I never knew who got them. So we have a curated list of 95,000 local households that are the kind of people we think are movers and shakers, or should be movers and shakers. And I would love to run some free advertising for Innovate.
Awesome. We have some talking to do once we're off air.
Sounds like it. I always think it's hard to tell a story in 90 seconds, a couple of words and a headline. As a former journalist myself, I feel like I'm allowed to say things like that. Yeah, represent, yeah, marriage to the people. Get the Jordan Belfort in there.
That's it.
So you talked about food, and I think that maybe it's a burger, maybe it's something else. But when you came back to town, or maybe even now, was there like a go-to spot that you wanted to go to that like you had to try out? Like, is Hampton Roads, is coastal Virginia, the 757, Tidewater? Is there a food of the region for that, or is there a spot that you have to check out?
Well, a little shout out. I've been going to El Giardino for 35 years, especially when I lived down on 25th and Med. But is there a food of the region? Yeah, I would say, my family's in the commercial fishing business up on the Eastern Shore. So I would go get a crab cake at some really great crab cake place. And I'm happy to name a few, but I don't want to give them any free promotion. Crab cakes, an orange crush, and maybe some hush puppies, and then maybe a cigar out on the boardwalk with a big glass of cognac or something.
Okay, well, funny you mention orange crushes, because I saw a video the other day that Maryland was doing like a promo, like, yo, this is ours, not Virginia's. And I thought it was hilarious.
There's the Ocean City, Virginia Beach war on who invented the crush. I think Mike at Waterman's might have something to say about that.
Yeah, we can't get we're holding on to it tight. We're not giving it away.
I'm still apprehensive to the whole thing. I think that someone in this is lying, and I am going to have to do my journalism to figure out who the real creator of the Orange Crush is, because for all we know, it's someplace in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
I tell you what, Zach, I'll take you up on the Orange Crush challenge. We will have to go taste as many Orange Crushes as we can.
Hey, I'm down with that. Let's roll.
I'm terrible. Like I was at Waterman's a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
it was definitely
it's a war. It's a war. You do not bring that up. That's like fighting words.
Ooh. Well, Barry, this has been a pleasure. It's been fun learning about you. We appreciate your time. Any final words, Tim?
No, I appreciate you taking the time. I think you have a lot of wisdom to share. Appreciate that. Looking forward to continuing the conversation to see what we can build together, and what can we do to turn Hampton Roads into what Seattle is today by helping some companies grow and with some successful exits.
That's a mission I'd like to be part of, guys. Really would. And I thank you for doing this. Thank you for starting this and keeping it going, because in some ways I can see the labor of love here. But I got your back here. Okay, so let's figure out what we can do.
Awesome.
Sweetness. Well, appreciate so that. Like and subscribe to this page if you are interested in attending this year's Startup World Cup, August 21st, 5 to 8 p.m. at Sandler Center at innovate757.org/Startup World Cup.
Matter of fact, now that we need to find like an Orange Crush sponsor or something. See, maybe we can do something like that. That'd be cool.
I'll take on that. I'll take that on.
Let's go. This has been great. Appreciate it. Peace.